Have you ever noticed how in America lately, asking a government agent to identify themselves is suddenly controversial, or justifying the use of force is considered oppression? Apparently, tyranny is now when a guy with a rifle has to wear a name tag. Body cameras are radical, badges are oppression, and warrants are optional as long as the guy kicking in the door works for Washington. Yeah, that's where we are. Velcro. That's the hill we're dying on now. We survived 2 world wars, the Cold War, disco, barely. We've got facial recognition in airports, algorithms tracking what socks you look at online, and your car reports your speed to an insurance company. But a badge number? Asking armed agents of the state who they are? Whoa, 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 easy there, Stalin. That's what breaks the Republic. Now here's the part that makes my eye twitch. I served in the Marines, and even in a combat zone, in an actual war, a place where people are actively trying to kill my friends and I. We still had rules of engagement. We had reporting requirements, identification standards. We documented the use of force. We knew who was in charge and who gave the order, and we answered for what we did. Imagine that. Let me say that again. In war, there are rules about when you can pull the trigger, because discipline isn't optional when you carry a weapon for a living. That's not politics, that's just professionalism. But in political arguments in 2026, some people act like asking federal agents in American cities to follow basic accountability standards, like wearing a name tag, is an attack on freedom and is just treated like you just proposed surrendering to France. Are you kidding me? It's completely baffling to me because these are the same people that demand that you show ID to buy Sudafed. Despite what you may hear in the media, the idea of accountability is not about Democrats or Republicans. It's not about border policy or protests or whichever outrage is trending this week. It's entirely about one thing, a question that nobody wants to ask out loud. Who gets to use force in America and under what rules? Everything else is just noise. Because according to the demagogues, force is the real power. Not speeches, not tweets, not press conferences, force. For them, force is what makes the law real. The power to kick in your door at 2 a.m., the power to detain you, the power to put handcuffs on you, to put you on the ground, to decide in about half a second whether you go home or go to a morgue. To take someone's freedom or their life, that is the single most serious power a government has. And some folks are out there arguing that the people wielding that power shouldn't have to identify themselves, to show their faces, or to explain themselves. That's not strength, and it's not law and order. That's a Halloween costume with qualified immunity. That's how you lose legitimacy. And the moment you stop asking the questions about the people who wield that power, you're not defending order. You're volunteering to be ruled. Libertarians have this old, boring, deeply unfashionable idea called the non-aggression principle. It's a relatively simple idea. It basically says don't initiate force. That's it. That's the rule. And if you're going to make one exception, if you're going to let the government use forms of force on behalf of society, then that force better be limited, justified, and accountable. Notice that last word, accountable, because a power without accountability isn't law enforcement. It's just organized violence with a nicer logo. For us libertarians, force is only justified in defense of life, liberty, or property. And if you believe that, even a little, then the people authorized to use that force on behalf of society should be held to the highest standards, not the lowest. Because government force isn't magic. It doesn't become moral just because there's a patch on the shoulder. Legitimacy comes from restraint, from transparency, from accountability. That's not anti-law enforcement, that's pro-civilization. And here's something I don't understand. Americans will read 300 Amazon reviews before buying a toaster, track a pizza in real time down to the stoplight, demand receipts from cashiers, and argue for 3 days about the ingredients in oat milk. But the use of government force, the guy carrying the rifle on behalf of the state, let's not get too picky. Really? You'll background check a babysitter, but not the people with the armored vehicles? We track our DoorDash driver more closely than some people want to track the use of government force. That's not trust or patriotism. That's selective blindness and civic laziness. History has a pattern, and it's really not that complicated. What history teaches us over and over is that when force becomes anonymous, when authority stops explaining itself, when accountability disappears, when uniforms matter more than the rules, you don't get order, you don't get safety, you get fear. And fear is the cheapest form of control ever implemented. It's efficient, it's scalable, and it works, right up until it doesn't. which is usually when societies and government buildings start burning. Any Marine, cop, or serious adult understands that fear is not the same thing as respect. Discipline isn't weakness, rules aren't oppression, and accountability isn't anti-law enforcement. Accountability is what separates a professional from a thug. It's the only thing that keeps power from turning into abuse, and the people who don't like accountability are usually the ones planning to need the lack of it. If soldiers in a war zone must follow rules of engagement, if we must identify ourselves, if we must answer for our actions, then federal agents operating in American cities can at least do the same. And if someone tells you that's unreasonable, don't ask what they're afraid of. Ask why they're so comfortable with unaccountable power. Because history is very clear about one thing. Unaccountable power doesn't protect liberty. It just buries it and calls the whole security. The difference between a free society and a police state isn't the uniforms, isn't the flags, and isn't the slogans. It's whether the people with guns answer to the law or become the law.